My name is Luke Whitaker from rural Rochester, Indiana. Everyone in our small Indiana town thought my father was a hero, a hardworking mechanic, a good neighbor, a man of faith. But behind closed doors, he was a tyrant. Years after I escaped, I inherited his land. And uncovered the truth he buried beneath it. Now I know why my mother vanished, and why the woods behind our house never grew right. What my father built wasn't a home, it was a grave. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss any of our chilling, true life-inspired stories. Tonight's tale is a haunting journey through family betrayal, buried secrets, and long-awaited revenge. Listen closely, because sometimes, the scariest monsters live right under your roof. Now, let's begin. They say you can tell the worth of a man by how many people show up to his funeral. If that's true, then Carl Whitaker was a damn saint. Folks packed the First Baptist Church that day like it was Easter Sunday. They cried into worn handkerchiefs and told stories about how he rebuilt Miss Lila's porch for free or how he stayed up all night welding Tom Lyle's broken trailer hitch. The deacon called him a pillar of the community. Someone even said he was the kind of father every boy should have. I just sat there in the third pew, staring at the back of the pine wood casket, thinking, you people didn't know him at all. To everyone in town, my dad was a good old Hoosier man. Ran his own mechanic shop just outside of town, went hunting every November, and never missed a Friday night fish fry at the VFW. He said sir and ma'am, shook hands like he meant it, and made sure the preacher always had a fixed carburetor. But at home, he was something else entirely. He was thunder. Sudden and sharp. I was 6 the first time he raised his voice at me. I dropped a socket wrench in the gravel, and he lit up like I'd totaled a truck. That same night, he taught me a lesson with the buckle end of his belt. Said I needed to learn respect. Said boys who cried too much grew up soft. My mom didn't argue. She'd just quietly wipe the tears off my face afterward and hand me an ice pack. That was her way of protecting me, I guess, keeping the peace, keeping him calm. Or maybe she believed him. Maybe she thought all fathers were like that, but they weren't, not the ones I saw at school drop-offs, who ruffled their kids' hair or waved through the car window. Not the ones who clapped at Little League games. My dad didn't come to those. He said cheering was for women and fools. What he did do was control everything, what we wore, what we ate, what we said at the dinner table, even how long the light stayed on in each room, and when mom made mistakes, when dinner was too late or too cold, he'd go quiet. That was always worse than the yelling. The silence came with slammed cabinet doors and the hum of tension so thick you could hear it buzzing in your ears. But outside, he was a king. At the diner, he paid for meals he didn't have to. At church, he bowed his head and led the men's prayer group. He even donated to the school roof fund the same week he backhanded me for missing a spot on the truck tires. So, yeah, Carl Whitaker was a man everybody loved, except the people who actually lived with him, and especially me, his son. It started with a pop. I was in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the knots in the wood paneling like I always did when I couldn't sleep. Then came a second pop, louder, like something cracking under pressure. And then the smell. Acrid. Heavy. Smoke. I shot up, heart pounding. Outside my window, the sky pulsed orange. For a second, I thought the sun had come up all wrong. Then I saw the flames licking the edge of the barn roof like a beast rising from the fields. I ran barefoot through the dewy grass, breath fogging in the cold October air. Mom was already outside, wrapped in her robe, one hand clutched tight to her chest. Her lips moved, but I couldn't hear what she was saying over the groan of collapsing wood. Then I saw Dad. Carl stood at the edge of the gravel drive, arms crossed, his face lit by firelight, and smiling. Not shocked, not scared, smiling. It wasn't big, not the kind of grin you'd notice unless you knew him. But I knew that look. It was the same one he got when he bluffed at poker and won. The same smug, quiet curl of satisfaction. He didn't even look at the barn, just at us. "We'll be all right," he said calmly, like he'd just spilled a glass of tea. Insurance'll cover it. Maybe even enough to replace the whole damn thing. I should have said something, asked why he hadn't tried to save the animals, why the fuel barrels were stacked right near the old wiring, why the fire inspector's report mysteriously concluded faulty lamp when there hadn't been one in that section of the barn for years. But I didn't, because I already knew, the fire wasn't an accident. It was a plan. Carl had debts. That much I knew from the whispered late-night phone calls and the envelope marked "Final Notice" he tried to hide in the truck's glove box, and suddenly, the barn, our barn, was ash and smoke. The livestock gone. The insurance check came 2 weeks later, and just like that, the family's financial stress vanished. But so did something else. Mom, she stopped humming while she cooked. Stopped talking to the chickens. Started staring out the kitchen window like she was watching something the rest of us couldn't see. She didn't say it outright, but I could tell, something had snapped inside her the night that barn burned. And as for Carl, he got bolder. He upgraded the truck, bought himself a new chainsaw, and started spending nights out with the boys more often. But that grin, that little crooked thing, it never left his face after the fire. Because fire doesn't just destroy, it clears the way. And for Carl Whitaker, it was just the beginning. The night Mom disappeared, there was no shouting. No slamming doors. No glass shattering against the wall, just quiet. It had snowed the day before, one of those thick, Indiana snows that coats everything in silence. The roads were slick, the sky low and gray. Carl came in late, as usual. I was doing homework at the kitchen table, and Mom was scrubbing the stove like it had offended her. He didn't look at her. She didn't look at him. That was how things worked now. Later, I heard footsteps creak down the hall, hers, not his. Then the screen door squeaked. A soft click. And then nothing. I waited. I told myself she was just taking out the trash. Or feeding the chickens. Or standing in the cold because she needed air. But when I woke up the next morning, the trash was still inside. The chicken feed untouched. Her coat gone. Her boots missing from the back porch, her Bible, still on the nightstand, her wedding ring, still in the ceramic bowl beside the sink, and Carl, he didn't seem surprised. He walked into the kitchen like it was just another day. Made coffee. Fried bacon. Hummed an old country tune under his breath. When I finally asked, "Where's Mom?" he didn't look up. "She left," he said flatly. "Said she needed time." Time? I echoed, not out loud but in my chest. Time from what? From us. I stared at her coffee mug still sitting in the drying rack, and I knew, she hadn't left, she'd been taken, whether by force, fear, or something worse. I didn't know. But no woman walks out into an Indiana winter without her wedding ring, her coat, or even a goodbye to her son. I tried asking around town. No one had seen her. No one even seemed concerned. Maybe she needed a break, Miss Ruth from the diner said. Your dad's a lot to live with. A lot, that was how they all put it, not cruel. Not abusive, just a lot. The sheriff came by once. Carl told him she'd run off to stay with her sister in Muncie. But Mom didn't have a sister. I told him that. He shrugged. I'm sure she'll call when she's ready. She never did. The house got colder after that. Not just from the snow, but from the absence, the vacuum her presence had once filled. Carl didn't mourn. He didn't talk about her. He simply took up more space, louder than ever. He burned her clothes in the fire barrel out back a week later. Said, no use lettin' 'em go to waste in a closet. I stood in the window and watched them burn. Fabric turned to ash, memories disappeared into smoke, but one thing stayed behind, the silence, and I would carry it with me for years, until I came back to bury him. It was a voicemail I almost didn't listen to. This is Deputy Keller from Fulton County Sheriff's Department. I'm calling about your father, Carl Whitaker. I'm sorry to inform you he passed away last night, cardiac arrest. We'll need you to confirm next of kin status and arrange property affairs. Please call us back. I hadn't said his name out loud in nearly a decade. Hadn't set foot in Rochester since the day I packed my truck and drove south, never looking back, but now here it was again, Carl, his name sitting in my ear like gravel. And with it, the house. The land. The woods. I drove back 2 days later. Not for him, for closure. The house was smaller than I remembered, like someone had shrunk it while I was gone. The porch sagged. The white paint peeled in strips. A wasp nest hung under the gutter like a warning. The sheriff had already come and gone. Left a key under the mat like it was still my home. The door creaked open, and a breath of stale air hit me full in the chest. Nothing had changed, the brown recliner still dented in the middle. The same oil-stained boots by the back door. The kitchen clock still ticked in that slow, lopsided way it always had, and yet something felt off, not the house exactly, but the land, specifically, the stretch of woods behind the barn. I used to play back there as a kid, build forts, throw rocks, climb the low branches. But there was always one part one avoided. A thick cluster of trees where the grass grew patchy and nothing bloomed. It wasn't fear I felt there, it was something deeper. Like the earth itself didn't want company. I stood at the tree line now, 20 years older, and that feeling came rushing back, like the woods were watching, like they remembered what I tried to forget. The will was simple. Too simple. 1 page, signed 3 years ago, leaving everything to me. The land. The house. The tools in the shed. No explanations. No apologies, but the lawyer mentioned something else, an envelope Carl left in a lockbox at the county office. I picked it up on my way out of town. Inside, a folded map of the property, a safe combination, and a note scrawled in blocky handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't dig where the trees don't grow. That was it. No, I'm sorry, no final confession. Just one last order from a man who spent his life controlling everything, including how his secrets would be found, but it was already too late, because I was going to dig, and whatever the hell he'd buried out there, I was going to bring it into the light. The shed hadn't been touched in years, dust clung to the windows like frost, and cobwebs hung from the rafters in thick gray ropes. The tools on the pegboard were rusted, stiff with time. A chainsaw leaned in the corner, blade covered by a flannel rag like someone had tried to forget it ever existed. I wasn't sure why I went in there that day. Maybe because the lawyer's envelope hadn't sat right with me. Maybe because the woods behind the house were whispering something I didn't want to hear. Or maybe because I knew, I always knew, this place was built on secrets, and Carl didn't bury his ghosts deep enough. The floor creaked as I stepped across it, and one particular board near the back gave with a soft, hollow thud. I stopped, dropped to one knee and tapped it again. Definitely hollow. A few minutes with a crowbar confirmed it, a square cut in the boards, nailed shut. Underneath was a rusted handle. A trapdoor. My chest tightened as I pulled it open, a waft of cold, damp air rose from the darkness. The ladder was metal, corroded but intact. I hesitated. This wasn't just about curiosity anymore. This was trespassing into the past, a past I wasn't sure I was ready to face, but I climbed down anyway. The cellar smelled of mildew and old oil. My flashlight beam landed on crates, rotting shelves, and scattered papers. Rats scurried from the corners. On the back wall was an old metal trunk, its lock broken. I knelt in front of it, heart hammering. Inside were remnants of fire-damaged fabric, warped Polaroids with the faces half melted, and scorched papers curled like black leaves. But what stopped me cold was a small velvet pouch tucked beneath a burned flannel shirt. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a gold wedding ring, engraved on the inside, M to C, always yours. I stared at it for a long time, the metal warm from my grip, though the room was ice cold. It was Mom's. I remembered the curve of it on her finger. The way she spun it when she was nervous. The way she set it next to the sink every night, until the night she vanished. Carl had told everyone she ran off. Now I was holding proof that he had lied. That she never left. That something horrible had happened in this house, and he'd buried it just beneath our feet. I climbed out of that cellar with shaking legs and vomited in the weeds beside the shed. The past wasn't gone, it was right here, waiting, watching, and I wasn't about to stop digging, not until I uncovered everything he tried to burn. I didn't call the sheriff. Not at first. I called someone I trusted, my old high school friend, Ryan Kerr. He'd joined the K-9 unit over in Pulaski County and owed me a favor from a bar fight I helped him avoid years back. "I need the dog," I said over the phone. My voice was steady, but my stomach wasn't. "I need to know what's under the trees behind the old Whitaker place." He paused. "Jesus, Luke. Are you saying?" "I'm not saying anything. Just bring the dog." He showed up the next day, early morning, before the frost had even burned off the fields. The dog, a lean black German shepherd named Molly, was quiet and serious, like she knew this wasn't training. We made our way to the patch of woods behind the barn, the part that never grew right. Even in spring, the grass was brittle. The air there felt still. Molly sniffed once, circled twice, and then stopped. Her body stiffened. She let out a low whine and started pawing the dirt. Ryan crouched, brushed back a thin layer of leaves and soil. I saw his face pale. "We need to call it in," he said. The forensics team from the state came 2 days later. They put up yellow tape, staked markers in the soil, and brought in ground-penetrating radar. What they found stopped everything: a shallow grave, torn fabric, human remains, female, mid to late 30s, estimated time of death. Nearly 18 years ago, my mother had been there the whole time. Not miles away in some motel or another town. Not vanished. Not missing, murdered. Buried. Forgotten, until now. They brought in dental records to confirm. It didn't take long. Her molars were still intact, just like in the X-rays from Dr. Pickens' office in '98. It was her. It had always been her. The earth never lied. Not like Carl did. He built his whole life, his reputation, his sainthood in this town, on soil that held the truth the whole time. And while the neighbors brought casseroles to his funeral, his wife was lying 6 feet beneath the trees, surrounded by silence and roots. I sat on the back steps of the house that night, bottle in hand, staring at the edge of the woods. "You covered it up real good, didn't you?" I muttered into the dark. "But the ground kept your secret longer than it wanted to." And now, it was speaking. The reporters would come. The town would murmur. But none of that mattered to me, because I knew what came next: justice, not in a courtroom. Not through the law, but the kind I could build with my own 2 hands. The headlines hit like a hammer: "Body found on Whitaker property confirmed to be missing wife." "Fulton County mechanic's death sparks murder investigation." Town hero or hidden monster? And just like that, the man they called a pillar cracked down the middle, and everyone pretended they saw it coming. The phone rang for days. Reporters, old classmates, church people who hadn't said my name in years. A few offered condolences. Most just wanted details. They wanted to know if he hit me. If he hurt her. If I'd always suspected, but what they really wanted was permission to be shocked. I didn't give it to them, because they all believed him, every single one of them. When Mom vanished, they asked if she'd finally had enough. When I left at 17 with a black eye and a busted lip, they said boys will be boys. When Carl showed up to church alone, week after week, they smiled and asked how he was holding up. No one asked where she went. No one cared enough to press. Now, the whispers ran through town like wildfire. You could hear them in the checkout line at Martin's grocery, at the booths in the diner, even outside the post office where folks gathered just to gossip. "Did you hear what they found on the Whitaker land? Always knew something wasn't right with that man. Guess the quiet ones are the ones you gotta watch, huh?" But they didn't know, they didn't see him up close. Not like we did. They saw the grease-stained mechanic with a firm handshake and free oil changes. I saw the man who cleaned blood off his knuckles and taught me to lie about it at school. For the first time in years, the Whitaker name didn't mean pride. It meant shame, a curse. A ghost. Some neighbors stopped making eye contact. Others brought pie like that made up for their silence. The ones who claimed to be Mom's friends cried in public and posted Bible verses online. But none of them had looked for her. None of them had questioned her absence, they let her disappear. Just like he wanted, and me, I watched it all from the front porch of a house I never wanted. Watching them squirm, watching the town unravel the story they told themselves for decades, but that illusion, that this place was safe, that men like Carl were heroes, that was gone now, torn down, exposed, and in the rubble. I wasn't mourning, I was planning, because if they were going to remember the Whitaker name, I was going to make sure they remembered the truth, not Carl's version, hers, and the land where he buried her. That land was going to grow something honest. Everyone expected me to sell the land. The house was crumbling, the barn long gone, and the dirt itself carried too many memories, most of them buried. Some of them unearthed. Realtors called. Investors sniffed around, eager to pave it over, build something shiny where the rot used to live, but I didn't want it erased, I wanted it rebuilt, because justice wasn't a courtroom verdict. Not for men like Carl. Not for women like my mom. She never got her day in court. Never got to tell her side. The town gave him grace and gave her silence, so I gave her a voice. I called it Mary's Field, after her. The name went on the county paperwork, then the permits, then a sign that now hangs on the old gate in simple black letters, Mary's Field, shelter for survivors. It started with the house. I stripped it down to the studs, peeled back every lie in the drywall and floorboards. I found more than I expected, hidden documents, old receipts, a notebook of names I gave to the police. Some of the cases matched missing persons. Others vanished without a trace, but I kept building. Volunteers came in waves. A few were survivors themselves, women who had lived their own quiet nightmares in towns just like this one. They helped paint rooms, lay tile, string Christmas lights along the porch. One woman donated handmade quilts. Another planted roses in the front yard. We built more than a shelter, we built a sanctuary. Each room bears a name of someone who never got to speak: June, Rosa, Sherry, Alicia. My mother's name is carved into the beam above the hearth. People see it when they walk in, when they sit down, when they remember. Carl's shed is gone now. Burned, intentionally this time. I scattered the ashes in the woods where she was found. It felt right. I kept the cellar, though, not as a crypt, as a warning. Down there, we placed a plaque: truth waits in silence. But it waits. The neighbors drive by slower now. Some honk. Some wave. Some just look away, not sure what to say to the son of a murderer, a man who turned his father's grave into a garden. But I'm not doing this for them, I'm doing it for the girl who shows up in the middle of the night with nothing but a garbage bag and bruises. For the boy too scared to cry in front of his dad. For the woman who thought leaving meant losing everything. Here, they gained something. Here, they're believed. That's my kind of justice. Not fire, not vengeance. Hope, grown from the same earth he tried to poison. And when the spring comes, the roses bloom by the porch, just like she used to smile when I brought them to her as a boy. The first woman who stepped through the front door of Mary's Field didn't say a word. Her name was Tony. She had 2 kids, a busted lip, and a look in her eyes I recognized from the mirror years ago, like the world had gone cold and she didn't trust the heat anymore. She didn't want prayers. Didn't want pity. She just wanted a room with a lock and a place her children could sleep without waking in fear. I gave her room 1. My mom's room. That night, I sat on the front porch, staring out at the land that had once buried the ugliest truth I knew. I listened to the creak of the porch swing, the soft laughter of kids down the hall, and I realized something I never thought I'd feel again in this house: peace. It didn't come all at once, it came in pieces, with every coat of fresh paint that covered blood-stained walls, with every box of donated toys that replaced shattered plates, with every name on our intake list who left stronger than when they arrived. The house still groans in winter. The floors still creak in familiar ways. But the energy's different now, less haunted, more healing. The place still remembers what happened here. And that's okay. Because forgetting would mean it didn't matter. And it did. My mom mattered. She wasn't just a woman who vanished. She was the one who tried to keep me safe when no one else could. She was the one who smiled through storms and hummed when the world felt cruel. She was why this place exists. I keep her photo in the foyer. Black and white, soft edges, her head tilted slightly, like she's still listening. Visitors ask if she's the founder. I tell them she's the reason. People from the town still avoid eye contact when they pass. Some send anonymous donations. Others just stay quiet, unsure whether to be ashamed or relieved. It doesn't matter, because the house does what it was always meant to do, protect. We've taken in 11 families so far. No questions asked. No judgment. Just warmth, food, counseling, and a chance to breathe again. A place to start over. Sometimes, I walk the perimeter at night, down by the tree line. The patch where my mother was buried still grows strange. But I planted lilies there, white ones, her favorite, and every spring, they bloom in defiance, they bloom in memory, they bloom in hope, because this house isn't just a monument to what was lost, it's a declaration of what will never be silenced again. Carl tried to own everything, our story, our fear, even our land, but I took it back, and now, when I walk these halls, I don't hear screams anymore. I hear healing. The house didn't forget, but now it forgives. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more gripping, real-life inspired narrations. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. What would you have done if you were in Luke's shoes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one, and if you know someone who needs to hear this story, share it, because some truths need to be unearthed.